Good morning, everybody. Brothers, sisters, psychonauts, and seekers of truth. It is Ananka, and welcome to my bazaar. Today, I have an FXE chirp report for you. The title of this chirp report is No Time for Me to Properly Understand, and was submitted to Erowid in 2022 by the user LST. With all that being said, let our story begin. An evening with FXE 3-F-2-OXO-PCE fluoxetamine. FXE has finally made a proper debut in the research chemical scene. After years of being rumored to exist, a batch that was cut with A-D2PV went into circulation within the past year. More recently, a proper pure batch of FXE began making its rounds, and I was lucky enough to get a small sample of it to test out. Because of the elusive nature of this drug, I had set my expectations very low, as I was fed up with the amount of controversy surrounding its existence. People claiming it couldn't exist, the first batch to be sold being cut with a cathinone, people dismissing it as an unremarkable substance, etc. But my sample recently arrived, and I decided to form my own opinion on what this substance is like. This batch of FXE was in the form of dense, translucent white crystals, very much reminiscent of the earlier crystal batches of 2-FDCK that were around a couple years ago. As with other aryl cyclohexylamines, I decided that the most standard route of administration would be insufflation. Potency, as reported by others who have tried FXE, is supposedly similar to ketamine, so I decided to start off by scaling out 60 milligrams. These crystals are very tight, dense, hard-to-break crystals. While a substance like 3-HOPCP or MDMA can easily be crushed with a plastic card, this batch of FXE is very sturdy. I ended up using a metal beer bottle cap to crush it up, and it was much more effective. After getting it into a line of powder, I insufflated it through a small metal straw. 4:30 p.m., 60 milligrams insufflated. Quite easy on the nose, comparable to ketamine. Not as intense of a flavor. Has a salty, almost yeasty flavor to it. Drip is very mellow compared to most other nose drugs. 10 minutes in, the effects are starting to set in. So far, it feels very similar to ketamine, ever so slightly more stimulating than K. After 20 minutes, the drip has fully begun hitting, quite a bit more bitter than the initial taste. Slight visual tracers. Not any remarkable closed-eye visuals. I have HPPD, so it can be hard to tell at times. 25 minutes in. Overall feeling of satisfaction and euphoria, as well as enhanced music appreciation. Very fine, static-like visuals that react to light. Not much physical inhibition or sensations from this dose. I have a decently high dissociative tolerance at the moment, so that likely plays a factor. This substance may require high doses for effects that begin to properly warp reality. After 30 minutes, I decide it's time to increase the dose soon. 5:25 p.m., 110 milligrams insufflated. At 5:35, I have a very liquid feeling. So flowy. Everything feels so gelatinous. Euphoric physical and psychological sensations. Music is whimsical sounding. It's very much comparable to the physical feelings from other dissociatives, but much more loose and liquid-like overall. At 5:40, I feel an overwhelming urge to dance while I'm listening to music. 3 minutes later, I insufflate another 45 milligrams. 5:45 p.m. This substance definitely has a gentle aspect to it. It encourages the user to recall uncomfortable thoughts and analyze them, work through them. I begin recalling difficult and uncomfortable memories, but am able to responsibly try to process them without being self-deprecating. This is one of the most therapeutic parts of the headspace from aryl cyclohexylamines, and FXE certainly delivers in this aspect. After this first experience, I had to get ready to go out for the night and couldn't go any further dosage-wise. The remainder of the experience began to taper off within about an hour or so, with the remainder of effects lingering for another 2 to 3 hours before I returned to baseline. Much, much later in the night, I returned home and decided to dive deeper. I wanted to see what the whole or out-of-body experience type effects would be like with the substance. My initial notes I tried to take during this experience were hilariously incomplete. 4:33 a.m., scaled out 205 milligrams. At 4:41, chopped into lines and beginning to insufflate. 5:41, I cannot begin to describe what I just experienced. Now, with a clear, sober head after the experience, I can try to recall what happened. I chopped the 205 milligram line up into powder and made several smaller lines out of it, and slowly worked my way through it as I sat at my desk and listened to music. Shortly after I finished the first line, I could feel the full effects of this dose beginning to hit me. There were very prominent visual distortions in the room around me, my computer monitor appearing to vibrate, the walls appearing to stretch and distort ever so slightly. Visual tracers, motion blur after images, and light-reactive pattern visuals were becoming very prominent. My room was beginning to take on the form of an M.C. Escher painting. I decided to lay in my bed and close my eyes, as I knew I was in for an out-of-body experience. The closed-eye visuals were not particularly bright or colorful, mainly consisting of darker greens, purples, and blues upon a black background. Cubic patterns interlocked with fibers that almost resembled muscle tissue. Within moments, I was whisked away into a dissociative hole. It felt as if I was reduced to microscopic particles and transported through a beam of light. I was passing through strange worlds, as well as more mundane worlds. At one point, I was being whisked through a non-Euclidean cityscape, while moments later, I was panning over a view of kitchen cabinetry. These worlds were different than what I saw from previous ketamine and 3-HO-PCP experiences that reached this point. More incomprehensible, more fast-paced, almost no time for me to properly understand what any of this meant. My headspace at this time was incredible. There was this incomparable feeling of bliss, as if all of my issues living in this twisted modern society no longer mattered. While I was in this state, I had a newfound love for life, myself, and the world around me. This might be the most profound, introspective, antidepressant effect that I have found from a dissociative thus far. I continued to explore my own mind, as well as these strange realms that I was perceiving through this out-of-body experience for a while, until I began feeling as though my ethereal form had now been transported along a wave of music itself. I was trying to comprehend this music, though I could hardly understand what it was or make out a single word of the lyrics. Suddenly, I was back in reality. I opened my eyes and went to my desk. I was still very much under the effects of the FXE, but there was not as much physical inhibition as ketamine, 3-HO-PCP, or DXM. The music that had been playing towards the end of that experience was The Interworld and the New Innocence by Praxis. That same song had given me an almost identical experience towards the end of a K-hole. It almost acts as a carrier wave of sorts for some odd reason. This was the point where I had written, "I cannot begin to describe what I just experienced," in my notes, as that experience had absolutely blown my mind. Ketamine had not delivered an experience that profound to me in a very long time, not since my very first K-hole experience. 3-HO-PCP had brought me close to that level, but not without making it feel like I had broken reality itself in the process. FXE's upper dosage levels felt like I got to experience a K-hole for the first time all over again, but more abstract and strange. The euphoric headspace during the experience was incredible and complemented the strong self-reflective and antidepressant effects. The body high is energetic and would definitely lend well to dancing, socializing, partying, and other similar activities. The most impressive part to me was how similar in potency and duration this substance is to ketamine. Definitely on the safer end of newer aryl cyclohexylamines, being that it's not particularly high potency or mania inducing. Someone who enjoys ketamine but wants something a bit more stimulating and psychedelic would certainly enjoy this substance. Only time will tell, but this might be my new favorite dissociative. Be safe, have fun, respect the body and mind. LST. Alright, everyone. That is the end of our experience. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and share with us your experiences down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other videos and playlists on my channel. And I will see you in the next one, fam. Deuces.